Welcome back to Magus and the Media, where myth, magic, and meaning meet the stories that you love. Welcome to this fine Thursday evening. Welcome with me here into the world of the strange. This is myth, magic, and meaning in a fallen world. And tonight, we are going to be opening up and talking about a few things that are going on in the world, going on in our hearts, going on in our minds. And so, what is it that we're going to be speaking of on this fine evening? Well, we're going to cover some old child stories, old young adult fiction, fantasy, magical, that is now being redone in today's world. We will be speaking upon Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling, that HBO is going to be doing a live TV series. Along with that, we are going to be speaking on things that go about that, which is going to hit on the likes of Dune. We've had Dune Part 1. We've had Dune Part 2. And in the near future, near as in the next year, I don't actually know the next date where Dune Messiah is going to be coming out. But we will speak upon what is going on with that. Hello, Kaiva Rose. Thank you for joining us on this fine evening. So we're gonna talk about how Dune and Harry Potter are sharing this new trend, this new old trend that has happened through time now, when Hollywood seems not to be able to really tell a good creative story anymore. And since they don't have creativity in Hollywood, very much of it, obviously there is some creativity that they hit on, but really they are missing out. So that means they go to stories of old, like Dune by Frank Herbert or Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. Two stories that are very long series. Dune is 6 books. Harry Potter is 7, I believe. The last book was cut up into 2 movies. So there's that. But these stories really moved and touched us as humans, not only on an individual level, but on a world level. And I'm going to talk about why. And we also will speak on Demon Slayer again. Why? Because it's crushing things. All things that are good, Demon Slayer is all things that are good nowadays. So this evening, this myth, magic, and meaning in the fallen world is our brilliant live streams that we're starting weekly. Currently, we're going to be doing once a week. Right now, it's working out to being on Thursdays. I'm going to try and find consistency with this so you guys can know that it's always happening. My video essays or my other hitting on the magic, meaning, philosophy, esotericism in our stories, we will be continuing that. And I do actually have a Harry Potter story coming out, as in a Harry Potter video that I'm doing, where it's showing the magic that J.K. Rowling has tapped in on. And I have a bunch of ideas for other video essays, just like this one. But this one is going to be touching on the ensoulment of statues that McGonagall does at the very ending of Harry Potter to help defend Hogwarts Castle and its students. And so we really touch on all those, all the magic that she really interrelated, integrated into her stories. And it's quite impressive, from everything from obviously the first book called The Philosopher's Stone, right? Or The Sorcerer's Stone, depending upon if you're in the UK or if you're in the United States, whatever it is. That, as we've seen already in past videos, like the Full Metal Alchemist video, for instance, that is all about the Philosopher's Stone and what that means to not only the characters, but to us as the audience, which is being enraptured in that story as our consciousnesses shift and change through great writing, right? And so Harry Potter does just that in that book, and they actually go after the Philosopher's Stone, which Nicholas Flamel, an actual character in our real life world, an actual alchemist on the initiatic path, the adepthood that we are following and tracing through time. Real man. and wife. He had a wife. And they were both seeking after and may have found that philosopher's stone. So that'll be a future video as well. But we must truly ask ourselves, why does any of this matter? Why does it matter that stories follow patterns? And that stories don't even follow patterns, but they actually dictated by these patterns. That great stories and great writers, they're not creating said stories, but they're discovering them. And this will be something I'm going to talk about over and over and over again, because as these video live streams that I'm doing, I'm calling it Myth, Magic, and Meaning in the Fallen World. And I think that's really apropos to what has been going on in this day and age. And I want us to be under no illusion that no illusions that this is not just happening now, that it's really been happening for a very long time, that hardships and chaos has been revealed to us more now only because we have so much data running everywhere and we're all so interconnected, which is why we can do such things like this, why we have all this social media, why we have basically teleportation of consciousness across bounds, right? If consciousness is non-local, that means that now it's taking shape in our reality, that I can be in your living room, and in this way we're through our screens, through these magic mirrors, so to speak. And again, another video coming up soon, Lord of Mysteries, the Magic Mirror, episode number 4. And so that's going to be coming out soon, and I'm going to hit on that as well, that these stories are all places at all times, and that the patterns of these stories are not only found in our experience, but found within our very embodiment. That these patterns, just like animals, they have instincts. That why does a dog want to chase after a car? Why, when we'll just use dogs because they're so pattern oriented. They bark when somebody comes to the door. They run after cars, right? As other dogs come about, they want to sniff them to get to know each other. They don't really, and again, fact check this. It doesn't seem to me for this illusion that dogs have, really big prefrontal cortexes. They don't have this ego self-consciousness that they can think about that I'm going to chase after a car, right? Or they think about, man, I have got to first sniff this dog to see where he's been. No. Or I'm going to pee on every tree I come across. And it's like, why is he talking about this? Well, it's really important because these are instincts that animals have, that dogs have, that just come out of them and they just do things. That is a great way of thinking about what archetypes do. What archetypes are. Archetypes live within us, humans. They live within consciousness itself. Some would say they're some of the most important parts of consciousness that there are. These eternal forces that move through us, just like a dog wants to chase after a car. The archetypes, we can stem them from first simple things, right? And the ones that come to mind are because of Full Metal Alchemist. A lot of people ask me, like, what stories are truly magical, occult, and esoteric? Mythological and philosophical, all in the same time. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is just that. That is one of those stories. And the reason I bring up Full Metal Alchemist is because in that story, they have the 7 deadly sins exuded in homunculus form. These created beings that take on the names of, lust, greed, envy, pride, sloth, so on and so forth. And these characters are the best representation of primordial forces. These primordial forces are older than you or me. That's why that's why some could say that archetypes are actually older and more real than any of us. Is because of these things all of us have experienced, and our grandparents have experienced, and their and so on and so forth forever, it seems like. So these archetypes stem themselves from the body itself, and Joseph Campbell makes that very clear in his writings. And so to keep on along this, this conversation of what archetypes are and why they're so important, and not only so important, but they're so important stories, is that great stories take on patterns. And the patterns aren't created, but they're discovered. And great writers have the ability to tap into those currents. I would say that those great writers, then we could deem them actually being, magicians in and of themselves, these true artists. Hello, Devlin. I'm so happy you made it. Devlin, your personal archetype is thus: the the horngus of dongfish is attached by a scungle to a kind of dye sack. Yes, yes. The newt sake. I hear you. Thank you, Devlin. So let's truly think about that. Let's think about these primordial forces that move through us and create things, right? And why they're so important is just like they're so important with our body, is that our hearts, lungs, stomachs, stomach, intestines, these do things, and they do very important things. And from them, we come upon certain experiences in our life. Some would say that if my body is out of touch, imbalanced, so is my reality. And no better place we can find that is in our great philosopher, the one who almost some would say, I would say, I've listened to a lot of people that also say that Plato is the footnote to the Western esoteric tradition, not just philosophy, but the Western esoteric tradition itself, magic, the occultism, esotericism, that without him, we wouldn't be where we are today. Plato and his Republic are exactly what I'm talking about, that he has the tripart state just as much as he has the tripart soul, and the Republic is his greatest ideal. That he says, and we won't get all into what the Republic is, but what he states is that society as it is ordered, and if it is balanced and in harmony, so shall be the human body and the human, not just the body mind, the humanness. So each individual has their place, as this each like the three different states of the Republic has its place, and as they're all in it together, they all can be harmonized. Thus we have a healthy society. Now, if we are sick inside, we can see, as we see maybe in our fallen world that we live in, if we're sick within, imbalanced, have a deficiency of yin, of the yin, as our a deficiency of yin and the yang, right? Or an excess. You have too much, as the rivers are too full and they're flooding things, or you have too dry, you have too much yang, or you have too much yin, right? Is in the Eastern Orient, in the Eastern mythology state. So back to the Republic, and then coming back to archetypes. Archetypes are important because we come across them in our everyday world. We come across people who play certain characters, these personas, so to speak. And they are just that. They're just personas. But if you can wipe away the persona of the way I represent myself in my world, underneath there is self. And that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to balance out the understanding of what is ego and what is self. And I'm getting to where we're going with Harry Potter because it's really important to what we're seeing today. Let's take these ideas of archetypes. We have what I initially stated as like very easy ones, with seven deadly sins, and we can relate that to Full Metal Alchemist, that they were embodied. And so each one of those characters in that story embodied that archetype, and you can see it as the story plays out. The story is brilliant, and it was number one anime / manga / Japanese story for a very long time, until it was, I think, taken over by a different one. Attack on Titan, I believe, is what it was. But neither here nor there. It's telling us what is a representation of those things. So we come into stories of today. and why archetypes are important. And when we speak about how archetypes are important, we have to understand why, and then it's the patterns. And so archetypes are important because if we can understand what archetype we're playing out in the world, we can understand then which ones we aren't. You know, if I, as Christopher Moore, I believe is the writer, he has a book called King, Lover, Warrior, Magician. And this book is brilliant, and it really helps you understand your psychological patterns as they unfold in the society of today. You know, for instance, the king, right? If we all know what it's like to see and have a tyrant king in our life, and if you are one as well, right? We can see it in society. We have many different people who have played that role. We can see it in our own lives. We've all seen or had certain father-like figures that have at moments maybe played the tyrant role, the extreme father figure, instead of the more idealized archetype of what a father is supposed to represent, that very Jupiterian figure, the fully actualized king. You know, in Jungian terms, we have the triangle. The very top is the fully actualized king, and in the bottom base, you have the extremes both ways. The tyrant king is the extreme to the one way. The other side is the king who's kind of like lax and a pushover and manipulated by all those who are around us. So there's that. So from there, we move on, and I want to pull up here something about how Jung talks about archetypes. And yes, it's on Wikipedia. That is what it is, but let's look at it. Jungian archetypes, so we can truly nail down what these are, from Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist. Jungian archetypes are concepts from psychology that refer to a universal inherited idea, pattern of thought, and image that is present in the collective unconscious of all human beings. As the psychic counterpart of instinct, instinct. For example, archetypes are innate symbolic psychological expressions that manifest in response to patterned biological instincts. Archetypes are thought to be the basis of many of the common themes and symbols that appear in stories, myth, dreams across different cultures and society. For example, the archetypes include those of the mother, the child, the trickster, and the flood, right? Among others. We have many great flood myths. This is an archetype. The concept of the collective unconscious was first proposed by Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and analytic psychologist. According to Jung, archetypes are the innate patterns of thought and behavior that strive for realization within an individual environment. This process of actualization influences the degree of individuation, or the development of the individual's unique identity. For instance, the presence of a maternal figure who closely matches the child's idealized concept of a mother can evoke innate expectations and activate the mother archetype in the child's mind. This archetype is incorporated into the child's personal unconscious as a mother complex, which is a functional unit of the personal unconscious that is analogous to the archetype in the collective unconscious. So, as you can see there, and why that's so important is because that lays us down exactly what the archetypes are. And what I'm getting to through this talk today is talking about how important archetypes are in stories, and why people think about, like, they go into a movie theater or they're late night watching with their partner or their friends, and all of a sudden something pops on and it was a movie, you put it on or not, and it was a great movie. It truly moved you. I would state, and many before me would state, that that is harmony, that is aesthetic, that is something that is an amazing movie or story. That since it moved me, what that means is that it found some kind of resonance with my nervous system, with my experiences, and I felt like I was those characters. And in doing so, I went on my own journey with them. And then you have the opposite of that, which when these things don't follow through with with the way they're supposed to be, we come to understand that was a bad movie, and that movie meant nothing to me, and it was basically like shallow formerness of itself. It was awful. Okay, I think it's really important to state this about Carl Jung too, is Carl Jung rejected the tabula rasa theory of human psychological development, which suggests that people are born as a blank slate and their experiences shape their thoughts, behaviors, and feelings. Instead, Jung believed that there are universal experiences that are inherent to the human experience, such as belongingness, love, death, and fear. These experiences, which he calls the collective unconscious, are expressed in what he called archetypes. Jung believed that these archetypes are influenced by evolutionary pressures and manifest in the behaviors and experiences of individuals. He first introduced the concept of primordial images, which he later referred to as archetypes, to explain this idea. So, this is something that now we can move on to trying to understand where we're getting at. And in today's world, we have stories that have no meaning. They can't be creative anymore. These sorcerers' apprentices in Hollywood who truly don't understand what it means to make creative stories, to make something from scratch and build it up. And again, my language kind of as I speak, it's not getting at what my main point is, because it's not that they're making it up, but they're tapping into when they're actual artists or actual magicians that are creating with the pen being the wand of intuition and creativity, taking on the mercurialness of their innate experiences or hitting on these archetypes, discovering a new realm, and all of a sudden, boom, J.R.R. Tolkien created Lord of the Rings. What? How could somebody do that with such depth, creating with such beauty, a whole language, Elvish, right? Something that he could speak because he was fluent in all these different languages, classical languages and whatnot. And he knew history really well. He had his own experiences. And so his own experiences resonated, and this is a theory, resonated his nervous system to be able to tap into the great beyond of all beings, this collective unconscious. And by doing that, he surpassed his own personal experiences, his own personal subconscious into this collective realm. And what did he do? He found a new realm. He found, right, Middle Earth. He created The Hobbit. And he didn't create it, again, language is tough sometimes when you're just kind of streaming with this, is that he discovered this world, The Hobbit. And I think sometimes it's, if not to go off on a massive tangent, that the archons are, it's when I say archons, these things, these outside forces are trying to, and they're only trying to because this is a frame of seeing it, that all of a sudden I say created when I mean discovered, and it's trying to trick you and me. It's like, no, like these things were discovered. And that in being discovered, this is something magical. Now, how do I define magic? Many people have defined it in many different ways. I'll say a few, the ones that I like. Magic is the science and art of causing change in conformity to your will, causing change in your own consciousness, in conformity with your own will. Not want, but your will, something you work on through time. The adaptations of past have helped us do these things. There are actual systems, there are actual ways to help you train your will, your imagination, and then doing, right? And so if you can use your will and your imagination and tune in through these practices, you can then have so much like single pointedness, such focus, that you could then, in this instance, in this kind of magic, you could be a bard, right? And you could be a great storyteller, and all of a sudden, for instance, J.R. Tolkien create Lord of the Rings, or J.K. Rowling creating Harry Potter, or Frank Herbert creating Dune. Discovering, see? Archons. But or my own inability to speak wise at times. And so these people discovering these things, because they took a lot of study and time to do so, Frank Herbert basically had to neglect his entire family to be able to, exactly, language is magic. Devlin, beautiful. Alan Moore said the same thing. One of the greatest writers, comic book writers of all time. But Frank Herbert had to basically, he didn't disown his child, but he's like, my new children are Paul, and Chani and Jessica, Stilgar, like all these people are my children now. Duncan, Idaho, obviously is a huge part of that. And these people had the ability to do magic. And this is what we all have the ability to do. And that's where this is all going to come to at the end of this. At the end of every video I ever make, it's basically going to be that kind of thing, is that it's time for you to take the magic into your own hands and not outsource it to somebody else. Spoiler alert, that's the plan. And so let's move on to what is going on in today's society. And I'll state this has probably happened in all societies, but this is a society I live in at this current meanness. And so we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about how Hollywood is forgotten. And what's interesting is that there were great stories. And again, they were taken from the Arabian Nights, because I always, for some reason, when I think Disney, I think Aladdin, because that's what had such a huge imprinting. I was vulnerable, as in I was a child, and I had a lot of imprint vulnerability growing up where I did, as in I wanted more and more. I wanted to see more things. I wanted to go on my hero's journey, maybe because of there's so much poison in the world, inflammation is so high. We're drinking bad water, eating plastic food, taking in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. It's everywhere. So I can add these into the equation, into the melting pot of things that are stopping creativity from happening, because a creative individual can see past the lines in front of his own face and has the ability to walk past them, to create new things, to discover new territories, and in doing so, be creative, right? So that's where this term create is coming from. They're being creative because as in a lot of great texts, they state, and I'll state the one huge one in our Western society, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh, right? That is creativity. That is discovering a new world. That is taking that pen to paper, using your willpower and your mind and your intention, and all of a sudden discovering something that wasn't there before. And when these things happen, they're beautiful, and we get great stories, like, which we'll talk about soon, is Demon Slayer. Japanese story, Japanese manga. It was first in a comic book form. That's what Japanese manga means. It's the East's version of a comic book. Surprise, right? My theory is, for some reason, and I haven't figured out why yet, the Japanese are having a great, or the East is having an amazing period of creativity. There's also so much bad anime out there that I can't even describe it to you. So I'm not an apologist to anime. It's not all created equal, just like not all stories are created equal. There's so much trash smut out there that I can't handle it. Right. And so, but I guess that's the alchemical process exposed on large, that we must take the dross and burn it away, so that which is pure can come forth. And the people are the alchemical process. And hopefully there's enough people out there that have good taste, that haven't been intoxicated by all this poison in the world, that we can actually see the sparks of divinity in our stories. So where are we going? Where are we going to this, right? Excuse me. Where we're going is mate. Thank you. There's no advertisements for mate here. I just love mate. But where we're going is we're going to talk about this, right? And I have my own thoughts, and we're going to hear them because that's why we're here. But let's go to our first part of Harry Potter series. What we have here is the casting of the characters. And as we can see, the casting of the characters that is going on right now, there's been some really great casting. As in, you know what? No matter what it is, I'll probably watch it, and we'll probably talk about it here. And we'll either like it or not. Hopefully they stick to the story. It's seeming at times where it gets me worried. And why I'm even talking about it now is because I'm worried about it. As should you all, I think. There needs to be lines on the map so we can understand where things are. Right? That's just how it works. And what we're talking about here is the casting of Voldemort could be not only cast as a male, as a man, but also could be cast as a woman. And I think that it's important to say right off the bat that I think women bad guys, women bad doers, I think it's important, and there's some of the greatest the greatest evil people there are. As in, there's been great stories with great evil characters that are women. So let's say that right off the bat. However, there's always a however in these instances. Why we're talking about it is because Voldemort is not that character to do that to. I love Harry Potter, as do, I'm guessing, millions upon millions of people in this world. Obviously, sales show it. Obviously, the movies were amazing and they made stars out of those kids, and now those kids have gone on to being some of the biggest actors in the world. I've watched all the movies. I've read all the books. I've watched all the movies multiple times. Each character is so brilliant is because they have such a resonance with the archetype that they're representing. And what's important to know is that characters change. Harry is the hero on his journey. Harry also plays the fool. Harry is obviously a magician playing that character. He's also many other archetypes as they run through them, and they all run through them in him in different parts. And then I could say that about Hermione, and I could say that about Ron, and I could say that about Snape, and I can, we could Dumbledore, so on and so forth. However, Voldemort is the epitome of an archetype. Voldemort is one of the biggest bad guys in all storytelling. Voldemort is probably up there, and people will fight me. The nerds in the world are going to say something about it if they hear this. He's up there with Darth Vader. Darth Vader is the epitome of bad guyness. If you think of who is a bad guy of all bad guys, Darth Vader will come up in your mind 9 out of 10 times. Obviously, unless you've never seen Star Wars, and then you've got your own. You get my point, though. Voldemort plays the tyrant father archetype. He's the corrupted logos. He is the dark magician, the sorcerer who went bad, the alchemist who chased after the stone for all the wrong reasons. If you change the archetype, if you change the character's archetype, if you change him from a man to a woman, the archetype changes. What he does changes. His experience change. How he does the whole story, plot, and ethos to his very structure of existence changes. Some major plot lines change. So if you're going to do that, I would state to HBO Max or whoever is out there, right? Whoever's doing this, Hollywood magicians, sorcerers, Hollywood sorcerers, Hollywood, right? That is the wood that the magicians and maybe would use back in the day. I don't know the exact one. Maybe it's the druids. I don't know. Doesn't matter. That was the tree of their culture in that time, at that space. It's not like, oh my God, that's the one wand that no, that's not how it works. This guy, if you change Voldemort from a man to a woman, we're going to have some problems. And the problems are, you got to change the story. And if you don't change the story, it's going to be a terrible show. You're not going to get all the money you want because you didn't listen. You didn't listen to the people. So what does this article state? I don't know what NDTV is or movies. I found this article, because it seemed like one of the better ones that was playing both sides of things, and that's good. So this is what it reads. A new wave of speculation has hit the Harry Potter fandom as rumors suggest that HBO's upcoming television adaptation of The Philosopher's Stone could see a female incarnation of Voldemort. He who must not be named shall be she who must not be named, I guess. The reboot, which aims to explore the wizarding world from a fresh perspective, may introduce the Dark Lord earlier than in the original films, potentially through flashbacks and his possession of Professor Quirrell. And then it goes on to say all these people talking about how they don't like it or it's fine or whatnot and so forth and so on. That's that article. I only bring up the article so you just understand that this, over the last few days, no matter when you're listening to this, has been a thing and people don't like it. So why? Why don't people like it? What if they changed Maleficent to a guy? You know, one of the biggest female characters that is evil, you know, plays that the bad archetype. He plays the evil archetype. What if that happened? She's the terrible mother, the witch Logos. She's the evil sorceress, and in doing so, she plays the game in certain ways. What if you changed in the Odyssey the character of Circe into a man, and then Odysseus comes across Circe the man? How would the Odyssey play out? And if you don't know what the Odyssey is, you definitely should look into it because it is all myth, magic, and meaning. Myth, magic, philosophy, esotericism, and writ, right? And we'll be breaking it down eventually too. That one's going to take some time. It is the second of Homer's epics. You have the Iliad, which is the masculine initiation into the forces of the Greek world at that time, with Achilles and his great battle. And then you have the Odyssey, and that's the great warrior Odysseus from the Iliad, right? As he travels back to his wife. And what happens upon his journeys in the great ocean, the great dream. And everything he comes across in those stories. So again, if you change Circe, the witch, the archetype of witchness, from a man or from a woman to a man, what happens? We don't know that because Homer's like, you can't do that. And then nobody tried doing that for a very long time. What do they do instead? They create new stories. Creating new stories is important because it gives archetypes the ability to be fresh, and then fresh stories can be discovered, and then you can do the thing and you can sell the story, and people will love it and you'll make money. I don't see the problem here. And you are right. Thank you. Druids, thank you, Kaiva. That's what I thought. Devlin, they changed Snape. I'm not optimistic about what HBO is going to do with the story. I know. They changed Snape. I know. I can only imagine what's going to happen if they, play out the stories. Obviously, they're going to have to change some things, right? And then that's where I'm like, okay, when you change so much of a story, what's the story then? And is it the one we all fell in love with? Look what happened to Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, the books are great. They're amazing. There's a great story. George R. R. Martin will never finish that story. Okay. That's not the point. The point is that story had meaning. It had archetypes. It had patterns that were expressed and gave substance to something that we all could read. And then upon reading it, we lived out that story over and over and over again. And then HBO took it, and what did they do? They crushed it. They crushed it in the worst way. They took it and they said, we don't care. We're just going to do this thing. We're going to make you addicted to the first season. It was okay. Left out a lot of stuff. Second season, it was okay. And then from there on, it was trash all the way down. And so if you do this like to Harry Potter, I know that the Harry Potter fandom is huge. Huge. Some of the first websites ever I don't know, maybe not ever, but some of the first websites I ever went on were Harry Potter websites trying to figure out, they were just created for us nerds to figure out what was going to happen in the next books. That was the beginning of what house are you? Take this quiz. It was forums upon forums of trying to understand, where is this story going? What are these characters going to do? Who is the real father of Harry? Is it his dad? I don't know. But if you change Snape, what happens? If you change Voldemort, how do you create the name to the name, right? Tom Riddle, Lord Voldemort. That was a big reveal in the books. That Lord Voldemort is, take the words and you change them around, and that is the name of Tom Riddle. That was huge in the Chamber of Secrets, right? That's what we learned. How does Harry interact with a female Lord Voldemort? I'm not saying it can't be done, but what I'm saying is it's not right. It's not right. And it's not right because the archetype needs to be expressed. It'd be like, and really hear me on this, and it's just like this. It's like if you took out your heart and you put your lung there. Let's do a transplant on a human. And they have a heart problem. Let's just put a stomach there. What'll happen? That is the same function. They function the same way. They are things that can't be interchanged because it changes the whole makeup of everything. The whole universe changes. And I think this is important to note. So I'm still going to watch it. It's just as it is unfolding who these characters are. And this may never happen. What's so interesting and cool about this day and age is that due to this kind of interaction with social media, when certain things get leaked, those people then hear about it. And if there's bad enough press, great. They'll actually do what, that almost seems like some kind of authentic democracy. I also always am reminded about what Alan Moore talked about when he spoke in Mindscape of Alan Moore, which I think everyone should watch. All of my subscribers and everyone who's listening to this, if you're interested in myth, magic, the occult, philosophy, art, stories, Alan Moore is one of the greatest magicians and storytellers. And I hope to all that is good that he will be remembered for a very long time, because he should be. But he talked about how important it is that the audience is the audience, and the magician, the writer, and the artist is the artist. And it's obviously an engaged activity that we can't have one without the other. But the audience doesn't know what they want. They just know they want something. They can't put their fingers on it. It's not the tip of their tongue, but they just don't know how to do it. So what do? They seek out the shaman, the magician, those who go into new territory and new realms. And when they do that, they're like, I need something, please divine me. And as they go about that, that's where the shaman shows them, okay, I have a story, and this is how that story unfolds. Because if the audience knew what they wanted, they would be the artist. And so that's kind of a thing. It's like the audience didn't know they needed Harry Potter, but when it came out, oh boy, did the world respond. And it's been like that. And some stories lag where all of a sudden they blow up. Philip K. Dick is one of them. He was poor and impoverished, and then his stories got made into movies, and then all of a sudden they blew up. And then he didn't really see, and there's many artists that are like that. And so it's important to know and to think about these things, that in the end, all that matters is that some kind of story be told, and then we can gauge ourselves on society as it happens. And that's what moves us into the next conversation on Dune, is that Dune did the same thing, where those books are fantastic. They changed my life. And so any occultist or magician or would-be philosopher magician, any would-be adept or initiate who is looking upon their world and trying to understand their place in it, I'm not trying to tell you what to do or what your reading order or any of this stuff should be, but I will tell you that Dune changed my life, and I read all six and I loved all six. And so I think that it's important to know when we're going about these things, like, what is it that should be read? Well, don't judge Dune off of the movies, because there's so much more breadth, depth, and substance to those stories than we could ever even imagine. And here I'm going to pull up exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. We're doing it live, so don't forget. I'm still trying to figure all this stuff out. Here it is. This Chani, played by Zendaya. So here's my first critique. There are many. First critique about Dune is, can we please get people who don't already remind me of who they are? That would be amazing. Side note from Devlin: the end of Game of Thrones was trash. Yeah. Here, Devlin, I'll put you up here. Perfect. Look at that. Devlin Cunning's Poss. Here we go. The end of Game of Thrones was trash. Jon Snow, aka Christ archetype, versus Night King, aka Satan archetype, never had a final showdown and fought each other to the death. What a layup. And they subverted it. Why? Exactly. Why? Bad writing, right? Why? Like, they got bored, lazy? I don't know. Layup, bro. You can't hit your bunnies? Come on. I mean, how simple is it to hit the bunny instead of not, How do I get her? Anyway, I know. I don't know, bro. I don't know. I agree. Zendaya. Zendaya played Chani. It's not Chani. Thank you. Okay, good. We can get past that and say that's not Chani, but she plays a modern take on Chani, which wasn't Frank Herbert's understanding of what that character was. And so that means the movies aren't the books. It's a new realm. It's a whole new story. And this is my point of what I'm going to get across here, is in changing so many major things in this amazing archetypical one of the greatest science fiction stories ever told. It crosses the barriers between science fiction and fantasy, that Frank Herbert took so much philosophy, mythology, magic, ecology, statehood, military. He took so much and put them into 6 books, that David Lynch in his Dune, as like, I guess, groundbreaking for that time frame, and David Lynch is a badass. Those movies were trash, right? Alejandro Jodorowsky, who wrote Holy Mountain, the movie. I highly recommend people in this community, in this world, to look up his work. There is a documentary. It's called Jodorowsky's Dune, or Dune. Yeah. Here it is. Let's see here. Again, doing it live, but when I mean Jodorowsky's Dune, it's right here. And why it's so monumental that this could have been something is because it also wasn't Dune, but this is what it says: daring and psychedelic films of the early 1970s. He created El Topo, he wrote El Topo and The Holy Mountain, cementing his status as the godfather of the midnight movie. In 74, he began working on possibly the most ambitious film ever attempted, a feature adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune. Jodorowsky was making not only a film, but a profit. His end goal was to change the world, right? Change the world. Do directors say shit like that anymore? What were you doing when you created that? I was looking to end world hunger. No, politicians don't even say that. And if they do, they're lying, right? Alejandro, changing the world. When he says it, I've seen him say it. We'll look that up one day. It's true. Alejandro's Dune would star his own 12-year-old son, Brontis Jodorowsky, alongside a cast that includes Orson Welles, Mick Jagger, David Carradine, and even Salvador Dali, who, for instance, has his own tarot deck. Obviously, he's a madman. And does just everyone should probably try their hand in making their own tarot deck. But and I say that with asterisks. Do the study, do the work, figure it out, and then be an artist, right? Be a magician. But don't just copy paste, right? And first study, right? Obviously, the groundbreaking special effects were under the control of Dan O'Bannon, and the soundtrack would be created by who? The mighty Pink Floyd and French prog rock masters Magma. In the words of Jodorowsky's producer, Michael Seydoux, it should have been enough, but it wasn't. To quote Nicholas Winding Refn, who I don't know who that is, but he says, I believe that people didn't do this film in America because they were scared of him. They were afraid of his imagination, and they were afraid of his mind, and they were afraid of what it was going to do to them. Yeah. So, that's pretty awesome. And I'm now going to talk about what isn't so awesome. You know what's not so awesome? This. This is not so awesome. Chani as Zendaya. And it's not Zendaya's fault. Maybe she could have acted better, or maybe this, or maybe that. I'm not going to blame her right now. Maybe in the future we will, but for right now, I'm going to blame Denis Villeneuve. I'm going to blame the director. And I'm going to blame him because for many reasons. Here he is. Again, figuring it out together. We're doing it live. This is Denis Villeneuve. He did such films as, of course, he did The Arrival. I've never seen it. That's probably blasphemy. I hear it's great. I want to see it. Okay. He did Blade Runner 2049. Some people fell asleep during it. Blade Runner is from the great writer Philip K. Dick. It's called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? It is amazing. That book is amazing. It really asks true questions on what is it to be human? How do you know if you're human? What is existence? You know? What is reality? Can I trust my perception? Can I trust corporation and governments? Right? He did Dune. He did Dune 2. He did other things. Sicaro. Obviously did a few other things. He's gotten Best Director. Right? Let's get him off screen. Let's get these people off screen. But what he did to one of the greatest stories of all time is that he took characters and he made them do new things. And so let's start with Chani. Here we go. Chani is a Fremen. She, in the books, in the actual story, is the daughter of Light Kynes. Who's Light Kynes? He's the ecologist Fremen leader, basically. He's very high ranking. Some Dune fanatics are going to blaspheme me because I can't remember right now exactly where on the hierarchy he was. A lot of the Fremen looked up to him. he was really powerful. He was in direct talks with the emperor. He was doing everything he could to do what? To change Dune, spoiler alert, into a green planet because it's death and decay. Water is life. It's death and decay for the Fremen, for everyone who lives on that planet. It's awful. And so, like Kynes, the man, the father of Chani Kynes, he was trying to do everything he could. Thank you, Devlin. Yeah, I didn't know that that is a Bill O'Reilly reference that I just did, but that's great. Great. Thank you. Fire. Chani, daughter of Light Kynes. Light Kynes is in direct integration with the Emperor. The Emperor of all things. The Emperor is the one who helped integrate with the Harkonnens the downfall of the Atreides, right? Killing Paul's dad and doing the whole thing. If you've never heard it, never seen it, too late. You probably should have. But what ended up happening is the Harkonnen then took out the Atreides so they could take back the planet, so they could get this family out of the way. Little did they know, because of the Atreides are more of the stoic, fully developed, idealized, militaristic father archetype. Paul's dad and the whole Atreides family, they have their faults, whatever. Jessica is Paul's mom. Going back to Chani, they've messed up every one of these characters, I will state, besides Paul's dad. He was pretty good. But the rest of them, we got a lot of talking to do, because Dune 1, I was like, at the end of it, I was like, okay, I can see what's going on here. The cinematography is amazing. The story hasn't changed yet. We're still in the beginnings of book 1. The part 2 will be the second part. Please don't mess this up, because that's what you do, Hollywood. You mess things up. The demiurges of Hollywood, these archons are not creative. This is why. Because what they did with Chani is a travesty. Chani and Paul are integrated. They're integrated. Why? They're integrated because Chani and Paul are the yin to the yang of each other. Paul needs her. Chani needs him. Chani is not all Fremen. And I think people need to understand this. She is the daughter of Light Kynes, right? They could have even did this correctly in the movie, and I would have actually been fine with it. Light Kynes was a woman in the movie. Great, actually. Okay. I can see it. Okay. I still had some questions, but whatever. But then they don't make that connection. They don't give Chani her due. Light Kynes' whole life was to help the Fremen and help them create a planet of greenness, a green planet of flowing waters and rivers and oceans. The Fremen have never seen these things before. And when Paul talks to them about where they're from, all through book 1, all through the first book of Dune, they have no idea. He's trying to talk about, because Corsican, the exact name, I can't remember, but I think Corsican is actually in Star Wars. You know, nerds out there, I'm sorry. I'm one of you. Just as we're streaming to consciousness at the same time, I can't remember all the places. But where Paul is from, he's from a planet like Earth that's got water on it. Not the point. The point is the Fremen don't know it, and they have water rituals. These rituals are really important to their way of life, because they have still suits on that, when they're in the desert doing their thing, is taking all of the water from their body and recycling it, because they're in a vast desert. There's no water anywhere, and they needed to live. Without the still suits, they would die. They would have low numbers, and the Fremen would probably go extinct. I don't know if that's true. Most likely that's true. And so what ends up happening is, like Kynes being an ecologist, not from Dune, not from Arrakis, he comes to this world. Whenever it is he came to this world, I don't know if we ever are told. I've only ever read the first 6. Sup, Wild Sea? Nice to see you. I've only read the first 6. I don't consider Brian Herbert, his son. All those are not Frank Herbert's genius. They're an Elseworld to me. We can use it sometimes. But the first 6 are what I'm going to always be talking about. Chani is the yin to Paul's yang. She is the anima to his animus. Anima and animus are two parts of the soul, the masculine and the feminine. These parts are really important to these stories. She has a dream just like her father, like Kynes. And that dream, because it passes on, it's a lineage, it's a legacy, especially in these more tribal, more of these tribes like the Fremen are, these desert tribes. They protect themselves with mythology, with a life, with a culture, so more than themselves. How can we survive? That is what these archetypes are doing. How can we survive? What is the Philosopher's Stone? Survival. Forever. Why? Well, because we sometimes miss the point. We miss the point about what forever means. Heidegger had a thing he called it thrownness. And how my mind took it and has taken it forth is that we have always just been here. My existence in this world is as if I was just thrown into it. And as a being in the world, I don't ever not remember. I don't ever not remember being here. I just am. I just have always been. That is the eternalness of my consciousness. And this is something that the dark sorcerers and the Sith, the evil parts of our consciousness, Voldemort, Maleficent, these characters that are trying to reach for eternal youth, the Philosopher's Stone or the Holy Grail. If only I can hold it. If only I can touch it and integrate it to my very being. Father, as he's trying to devour the Son or devour God, right? In Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and the actual story, to become more than God. That's madness. That's madness. So this level of immortality, this level of survivability, the first circuit of consciousness in the eightfold circuit of Timothy Leary and John C. Lilly and Robert Anton Wilson, as they spoke about it, this Prometheus rising. Prometheus rose above the gods, stole the fires, and gave it to humans. Technos, techne, arche, right? These things that help us. But at the same time, each person has to do it with levels of humility. Prometheus got chained up to the rock as the bird forever ate from his liver, right? From his body, from his stomach, from him forever. Talk about suffering. There are consequences to our actions. And so there are other ways of going about doing said things, and each archetype takes on its own thing. Voldemort's was the most disgusting, right? So, same with Maleficent, stealing for more beauty. But then you get the opposite. You get people just trying to survive. And that is what this means when you're trying to change over this planet from what it is to what it could be. Make it green, make it grass, make it grow. Devlin, thank you. Killing it tonight, bro. Devlin, you're right. I've always taken thrownness to mean we are literally thrown into an ongoing storyline. We don't get to choose the circumstances. We have to deal with them as they are. Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's beautiful. And I think that's very true. Being in the world, right? So what are the Fremen trying to do, and why is it so important that Chani is there so it can be done? You need a hero in the journey, on his journey. The hero is, and so what Mr. Denis Villeneuve, however you say his name. I respect him for trying, but you missed. You struck out, bro. Why? Because you are trying to claim something that Frank Herbert already did. Frank Herbert talked about how Paul isn't the hero. The story isn't about hero-ness saving the day. The story is about how to show people that you must be careful with charismatic leaders. Please be careful with charismatic leaders, because as humans, we're not just heroes. Sometimes we go so to the extreme that we take on the alchemy We take on the Philosopher's Stone. We take our adeptship. We become initiated. We go through our trials and tribulations, and we end up taking on the fullness of the king, warrior, lover, magician, taking on the fullness of the archetype. Or on those paths, we take on the opposite, and all of a sudden we lock ourselves in an archetype. That's what Voldemort did. He locked himself in the archetype, especially by separating himself into 7 different Horcruxes and sending them across, right? Or six or 7. Either way, the number is very significant. Why is Chani so important that she does what she's supposed to be doing in those stories? It's so important because she is the feminine archetype that helps Paul upon his journey. Because if she knows that Paul sees the golden path, and upon seeing the golden path, that Paul is supposed to take on this terrible work, and he tries not to do it. He almost steers away. And if he steers away, it is the annihilation of the entire world, of the entire universe. Why? The answer is spice. But the people don't know it. How is spice created? Spice is created from the sandworms. And this is a big reveal in the Dune world. It's a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spice is created by sandworms in the pits of the sand. The sandworms come across, I think, again, some of these things elude me. They land in a pile of water underground. They take it and they have the ability to gain this, like a sandworm dies and all of a sudden it exudes spice somewhere or the other, right? And upon doing that, that spice is the very industrial world that is created. Spice is what moves these ships across space and time. They have the guild navigators who are addicted to spice in these axolotl tanks, in these tanks that then they're in these big spaceships, and that's how you get from one place to the other. It is the oil and the lubrication systems of the transit system, the infrastructure of the universe of Dune, in the galaxy that Dune is in, where all the royalty use and everything. Without that, also, it's the drug trade. Spice is the mighty drug trade. You see that a lot in the Bene Gesserit movie or TV series that came out on HBO. Was it HBO? Yeah, it was HBO. It was good. I liked it. I like stories. There were some things, but maybe because it was the Bene Gesserit pre that, and I'd never read the other stuff, that I didn't have as much passion. And so since I've read the 6 stories of Dune so much, and I've gotten to know these characters so well, and then all of a sudden you get a movie which takes Zendaya from the fully lived archetype of the warrior priestess, the warrior mother priestess, the feminine actualization of the anima of Paul, the great Messiah, who turns out to be the great wise old sage. And before that, he's the great hero. He's also the great evildoer of the world because he brings on such suffering. He takes jihad across the world, across the universe. And the beautiful thing is, we never actually see the fights. We see like 1, 2, 3 great fights that we need to see in the story that is told to us. Everything else in the Dune books is not action-packed. It's philosophical. It's of the mind. It's of the characterization of how the sand moves and how people are thinking about the different forces of good and evil, the different conspiracies that are going along. What are people feeling? What are they thinking? What is Jessica, the Bene Gesserit witch? What is she seeing in the movements of people's actions and words? What is the subtext of these stories? How can we create the world where now we understand the world like a Bene Gesserit would, like a Mentat would? Chani is the high priestess. Jessica's a high priestess, obviously. She takes on the mother superior role. She's the actualization of the archetype of high priestess. But Chani is the mother figure that's married, is the mother-wife figure. She's the archetype of mother-wife, priestess, warrior. She is the daughter of light kinds, and she wants to also see the world turn green without actually knowing what that means. And so a path is taken upon, and I'm not going to ruin what happens on that for those who haven't read the rest of the books. But it's amazing, and I don't understand, and they'll probably never get to God Emperor Dune. Some crazy shit happens where, Paul's son takes on and becomes a fucking worm. It's crazy. I spoiled it. Okay. Sue me. But what I'm trying to get at is, what if Chani doesn't do her archetype, and what if she takes on more of a modern world of a character that is actually trying to rebel against her husband, against the man character in the story, and all of a sudden the story is wrapped around what she thinks. So instead of when Paul comes out of the great prescient trip that he takes the almighty holy elixir, the blue substance that comes straight from the worms, not just spice prescience, but the next step into the Keys Watch Heteroc. That substance, the great immortal elixir that Jessica takes to become the Mother Superior, that awakens the child within her, Alia, to be Alia of the knife. Alia's prescience within the womb, Paul's sister. Again, something we never get in Dune. What is happening to our world when Dune, a major part of the story, comes along and then doesn't happen in the movies? Are you kidding me? We're crazy. It's crazy town out there. This is myth, magic, and meaning in a fallen world, and no one knows what's going on. So back to Chani, and then we'll hit Alia, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with Demon Slayer. This is where we're going to go. We're going to go a little bit quick. Chani was supposed to be next to Paul's side, give him reflection upon his deeds, but still hold on to what the golden path is. She sees Paul as the Keys Watch Heteroc, as the Muad'Dib, as the little mouse, as their idealized dream of savior. Like Kynes in the books also saw that very thing when Paul was putting on the still suit for the first time. Paul just knew how to use a still suit. It was perfectly put on his body. His father didn't do it right. No one else was doing it right. Why was Paul? Just cuz? Just cuz. Just cuz. That's what they say these days. How come? Just cuz. It's crazy talk. So like Kynes believed that Paul was also maybe the character, that one which will bring upon the greatness of Dune, that he could maybe be what prophecy has spoke of. The Fremen don't know about the Missionaria Protectiva, right? That the Bene Gesserit put upon that world, the cultural myth that would help any Bene Gesserit lost upon the world. And if they came across it, they could be integrated into the Fremen, into the culture of that planet. They probably didn't know that. Like Kynes most likely didn't. Maybe he did. And if they did, please comment. Please tell me. Because I need to fill in the gaps of these things that I've read and then forgotten. So Chani was wanting to help, wanted to do that as well, but also knew at times Paul needed her. She wasn't just a weak character. She had strength. She had meaning. She whooped up on Paul in the beginning when they first met. What? She was strong. They're two peas in a pod. When Paul came out of his great trance, his great prescient trip, that which brought upon him into the great darkness that no Bene Gesserit could go, that's when all of a sudden they thought he was never coming back in a coma forever. He was there for a long time in the great trance. And then when he came out, his mom, Jessica, Chani, they were there and they wanted to know. And then they saw. You're right, Paul. You will do what was meant to be done. And we will be there by your side because we can see it. Instead, what do we get? Madness. I remember exactly where I was at when I was in the theater. I was in the back of the theater, so excited for Dune 2, and it just kept going, and more of my heart and my body, and I'm like, oh, and then all of a sudden my face. Sadness, pure sadness. Because instead, you know what he gets? He gets slapped in the face. That's madness. He gets slapped in the face by Chani. That's not Chani. That's a crazy woman. You just got done tripping balls, right? You just saw God. You saw existence as such. You were outside time binding and seeing past, present, and future. You don't know if you're ever going to come back. And then what happens? You wake up and you get slapped by your inner feminine. For what reason? It's not like he was just doing it to do it. Everyone knew that this was going to happen. It's been alluded to. She's seen it. And there's a lot more evidence to why what happened in the books happens. From then they move forward and so much happens. But instead, this is how Dune 2 ends. She's mad. She runs away. Paul ends up doing these things where it's hard for me to even think about. Chani in the books has a child. It's Leto, named after Paul's father. A lot of battles are happening. A lot of time elapses. We don't see them, which is great because we get more exposition, we get more talk, we get more knowledge about the characters. We get about the story. And then what happens is the Harkonnen attack and find their the Fremen's camp that they're in, their siege, and they bomb it, and Leto dies. So Paul's first son dies. It's sad, and you're like, wow. And it happens really fast, but it does happen, and that is what moves the story forward. That Paul's had enough. And it's time for the Harkonnen to fall. So this thing, I'm rereading them again. And so we'll go deeper into this next time in the future. But Chani and Paul are together. She is his anima again. She is the outward extension of his feminine, just like Paul is the outward extension of her masculine. They make harmony. They create a sacred marriage. Chani knows her place. She understands government. She understands being a warrior. She understands magic. And in doing all these things, she understands what her place is in the world because she lives her life based on a myth, not a fantasy, but mythology, culture. She understands her path of individuation and what is to make her place and help her outer world, help Dune become a planet with water, help the Fremen live and expand themselves. And so what ends up going on is how I move forward from this and why it's like what I'll finish with Chani, but we're hitting up Alia now. Alia is born in the original Dune books and she's not in the movies. And again, madness. It's a fallen world when you can't just follow the books. It's as simple as following the books. And then do your own thing, of course. Change some stuff because you got to, because it's a different medium. And as Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. And as the medium is the message, you can change things, and that's okay. But what ends up happening is Alia is born in the books. Alia has prescience because of her mother. Jessica took the great blue, the holy water of life, the elixir of life, of the spice, the holy concentrated spice into her body, and she awakens to being the mother superior. Thus has full prescience and has all the past lives of all the other mother superiors within her consciousness. It's if she goes any further, it'll drive you mad. That's the difference between then the Kiswach Heterach. Paul becomes the Kiswach Heterach because if he took the same spice, the same concentrated spice, the water of life, and he took it and he almost didn't come back. That's what the Kiswach Heterach does. He goes into the darkness where the Bene Gesserit cannot go, and he experiences that which cannot be experienced by a sane mind, by a mind that's pulled as far as it can go. Paul snaps his and then re-alchemizes it forward. And then from there, he comes back fully actualized and enlightened. However, he's not just a hero. He is a madman. He is the shaman. He is the actualized of these things, and he's got a great destructive thing that's going to happen. He must take on the great jihad of the golden path to see how to survive and protect the entire existence of the entire universe. Otherwise, all will die. So, in the movies, Paul is the one that kills the Harkonnen. Let's say that again. In the movies, Paul invades and kills Baron Harkonnen. Why? Those of you who've never read the books would be like, that's fine, right? Is that fine? That's fine. It's cool. It's not. And this is why. Because the rest, like in the Dune Messiah and Children of Dune, which are the next two books, Alia is the character, is Jessica's daughter, the fully actualized in the womb, full prescience, has self-awareness, has the ability to say I as a child, and then has all the memories of her past, of all the other mother superiors. Just think, you are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, even to today, how old you are, full prescience of all past lives, and all there, and you got to separate all that out, and you got to know what I is, who is ego, how can I have a persona, put on this mask of who, and then interact with society. As a Bene Gesserit or as Paul, you've had training. What is this training? And that's what we've talked about. I talked about it in a past video about the Bene Gesserit. They train in the way of yoga. They train in the way of mysticism and magic. They have occult training. That's why they can take on the water of life. That's why they can take spice. And that's why they can do all the great magical things that they can do. Willpower, imagination. Alia, her nickname is Alia of the Knife. Why is that? Well, she, spoiler alert, in the books is the one who kills the Harkonnen. Baron Harkonnen. Kills the great slithering fat slob, the putrid king archetype, the extreme opposite to the other side. She kills him, and that's like her legacy. That's one of her legacies. And as it moves forward, that's so important, because instead Paul does it. For what reason? That's not what's supposed to happen. It's in another universe. It's a completely different world. It's not as cool. Not as pure. Not as true to the archetype. So Alia the Knife doesn't do it. Actually, funny enough, not even born in this book yet. She is still in the womb. Not to be born. And just came to me, she's like a little demon girl in the womb. Jessica goes through these little weird demon exorcism spouts that's like makes her feel and talk all weird. That doesn't happen. That's not correct. And so as the movie ends, Chani throughout this movie, she's against an outsider, Paul, coming in and being the savior, right? That doesn't happen. Never happens in the books. Chani knows that Paul is needed. He is the outsider that comes in and integrates himself to be like one of them. That's the point of Paul as a character entering in and becoming a Fremen. He knows of our ways, right? He knows of our ways. One will come and he will know of our ways. It's really important. Because Chani doesn't like push back against that. She's been trained and learned from her father, like Kynes, who understands the ways of the Fremen as well, knows how and what needs to happen. He would do anything to make that planet green. He's an ecologist. He wants to terraform Dune, and in doing so, make the Fremen thrive. And instead, you get Chani, who's trying to push out the one who will know our ways. It doesn't make any sense. She also gets mad that Paul then is going to marry Aurelian, who has Bene Gesserit training, who is the daughter of the emperor. In these things, so Paul says, I will never bed you. We will wed, but only for governmental, only for military reasons, only for royal reasons. Chani is mine, and I am hers. Never will you and I be a thing. And Chani knows in the books. She's like, yeah, exactly. You have to wed her. It hurts me, but because I want to be wed to you. but I know that only I will ever be in your bed, or only I will ever be in your heart. In the movies, we get the great scene of them fighting, her kind of acting all weird and being all like, ugh, I hate you, Paul. This is stupid. What are you doing? You know? And then she rides away in the sunset on a sandworm. Great. Great ending, Dennis. Great ending, Dennis. Thank you. That's original. Huh. Where'd you get that idea from? How'd you get that idea? What kind of pressure were you under to write that? Or are you so brainwashed by society that you have to like change archetypes? Let's put a lung where the heart goes, right? Let's see if it functions the same. Does the body work? Is our society sane? Are we sick or are we healthy? Because our stories are telling us that we're not feeling too well. Every once in a while, we're getting some pretty cool things going on. Dune came out, the world's a little weird back in the day. Still, great things will shine forth. Today, they're taking great things and they're putrefying them. Some people have never read Dune. Some people have never read Harry Potter. Some people have never seen the movies, which were great. And then they will watch the TV series and they will think that is the story, and then they won't understand. It's their loss, and we are here to help them. Magus in the media. Magus in the media, where myth, magic, and meaning meet the stories that you love. And we love stories, right? We love stories. What stories do we love? Well, we're going to end it talking about Demon Slayer. We're going to talk about Demon Slayer. This article states Demon Slayer Infinity Castle beats Fantastic Four international box office. Now threatens Fantastic Four entire overhaul. Demon Slayer Infinity Castle has surpassed Let's do this one. It has surpassed not only our expectations, but also its competition. It currently boasts a worldwide gross of $556.5 million, holding the 9th rank in 2025's highest grossing movies so far. It has even surpassed MCU's The Fantastic Four First Steps, which made $520.6 million globally. The anime's film international figures currently sit at $450.2 million, so its foreign collections is already threatening Fantastic Four's entire haul. Now it's closing in on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning and James Gunn's Superman. It's closing in on Tom Cruise. That's how great these stories are. It's closing in on Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is, he's Tom Cruise. So then we get this article. Death blow to James Gunn's DCEU. Has Demon Slayer Infinity Castle surpassed Superman at the box office? Demon Slayer Infinity Castle has knocked down 2025 movies left and right, and now it might threaten the reign of James Gunn's Superman. So the latest Superman by James Gunn was a small hit. Was it? No, not a small hit. It says it was a smash hit. I don't agree that it was a smash hit. It was supposedly good. I haven't seen it yet. Once I see it, we'll do a video on it. Despite mixed reviews about its politics and the superheroes' personalities, but Demon Slayer Infinity Castle is closing in on its spot in 2025 worldwide. Demon Slayer, where is the numbers? Demon Slayer's at $558 million. That's huge. This is an anime, and it's not even open in all theaters right now. Do we understand what I'm saying? That this single anime, a boy Tanjiro, who's trying to save his sister from being a demon. It's a story. It's a philosophical. It's an alchemical journey, a hero's journey. All these characters transcend themselves. As you watch the spectacle of Demon Slayer, you are truly getting. And okay, there's nerds out there who are all like, saying it's an 8 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, and they're stating that some of their problems are that there's too much backstory on the bad guys. Whatever. Okay. No. You need, it's 2.5 hours long and you're enthralled the whole time. Obviously, they're stating good things about how amazing the, about how amazing each, fight is. Obviously, the choreography is amazing. Yeah, we get that. I get that. The choreography is amazing. Also, the colors are amazing. Also, the backstories are amazing. The fight moves are amazing. The pacing is amazing. The transitions when uh when Zenitsu, one of the main characters, the sleeping warrior, when he transcends himself and all of a sudden has to take down Kaigaku, his warrior brother, not his true brother, but his brother, martial arts brother, because he turned himself into a demon because their master had to commit seppuku, and so Zenitsu knows that he has to surpass this like moronic sleepiness thing that he has, where he like whines about everything and only can fight when he's asleep. He surpasses that, and you're getting the backstory of what happened, and as they train, and as the guy took on the Kaigaku, his brother bad guy takes on being a demon, and all of a sudden his teacher, goes through with the bad, with seppuku, and like, and then it transitions to the fight scenes, and it just is so beautiful. And I think there is light at the end of this tunnel. I think that when we have good stories, it really means something to us. I think there are a lot of examples of bad stories out there. Like Villeneuve's Chani becoming a skeptical and resistant. She's got an archetypal shift. It matters because Paul's the Messiah arc requires anima archetypes, integration, change. That change weakens the mythic resonance. And you get it in a bunch of other things that we're not going to talk about now because I've been rambling on about all this other stuff. But when you have Demon Slayer, you have such a great story that it is hitting box office numbers left and right, that it's still in theaters, that it didn't think that it was going to be able to do what it did. And then all of a sudden, we're going to have 2 more movies, I think, right? 2 more that are going to come out in the next coming years. This is going to keep us, like the world can't end. The world can't end because I need Demon Slayer to finish. I need Chainsaw Man to finish. I need Jujutsu Kaisen to be animated and finished. I need to see all these great stories, and they're all coming out of. I need Solo Leveling to finish. I need to see Frieren. I need all to continue. I need more. Lord of Mysteries is one of the greatest stories of all time, and I haven't even read the Chinese Donghua. Or the Chinese web novel. Sorry, I've seen the Donghua. Obviously, I'm making videos on it. Episode number 4 coming out soon, right? And so I think it's really important that we know great stories are happening, and they're happening in the East. They're happening in the Asian countries. It's happening over there because of some reason. And what's not happening over here in the West is great stories. What's funny is we're getting great stories made in the West, but they're actually of the East, like Blue-Eyed Samurai. If you've never seen it, it's an amazing story. It's true to archetypes. You have a female lead, and it's amazing. You get her main best friend character, and he's missing arms. It's a story of her trying to kill her father, the white man. And it's great. Like she's got blue eyes. So she's, got like mixed genetics, mixed blood. And she's, outcast from her society for it in the early Japanese, so it's, a true to the real world. But the myth itself and acting is some of the greatest fighting. Her character expansion is amazing, and it ends brilliantly. And then I can see how the season 2 is going to come out and be great again. So, and then we'll talk about it. And if it isn't, I'll tell you why I think it anyways. So we've gone through a lot in this time. And I think let's let's wrap it up. When storytellers don't honor archetypes, they confuse the myth. Archetypes aren't costumes to be swapped out. You can't just again change your heart for a lung. Function matters. When you have great archetypes, the world responds. When Harry Potter first came out in the books, it was a world phenomena. When the original Star Wars came out, it was a world phenomena. It blew minds. Why? George Lucas loved Joseph Campbell. Hero with a Thousand Faces was why Star Wars was created. You know why else Star Wars was created? Because of Frank Herbert's Dune. These two things that I'm going to be continually talking about are great cultural shifters in our world. The reason George Lucas wrote Star Wars is because he read Dune by Frank Herbert and also read Hero with a Thousand Faces. He made all the people around him read that book so they understood the point of Luke, of the journey of the Skywalkers. Again, we could do a whole video on what that even means, the Skywalkers. The archetypes are there and they matter. Infinity Castle, if Demon Slayer, you get Tanjiro and the archetype as he moves through the world. And all the other characters around them, it makes sense. It's a harmony where order and chaos meet. This means that authentic myths resonate globally in our culture. That we know in our heart of hearts and in our spine and nervous system when great stories are being told. And we crave them. We crave them because we crave our own personal myth. And when we discover our own personal myth, when we discover our own hero's journey, no matter who you are, every person's birthright is to discover their own myth and understand and find their own meaning. And when we can do that as an individual, as individuals in a society, in a globalized world where I can teleport instantly and be in your living room, then we can all be together, unfolding consciousness and society together because they're integrated, as we talked about in the beginning with the Republic. It's not perfect, but Plato was alluding to something, as he always did. He was asking questions, getting to the nature of things. Socrates, through Plato, never tried to figure out. He did, but that's not what the dialogues were about. It wasn't about figuring out what is the eternal substance of life. You know, he didn't ask what are the elements that make up these things, right? There was more like, yeah, we get the Platonic, we get the forms kind of alluded to throughout, you know. We get the understanding of the one and the great geometer, the great demiurge creator, right? The demiurge in a Platonic sense isn't evil. He's a creator, like a craftsman. When the individual is in harmony, society can find harmony. The republic can be in harmony. When the republic is in harmony, the individual can find harmony. They understand their place. They understand their role. These myths give us those things. When the individual is sick, society is sick. When society is sick, the individual will be sick. When corruption runs abound out in the open now, we can just see it happening. What's been going on in the last few years? I mean, either it's just because I'm getting older or the world's getting crazier. And I think it's a little bit of both. But when corruption is abound, you can feel it. You know it. They can try to pull the wool over your eyes. It can be like the Truman Show, and you can just play games forever. Just be the persona, right? Just be what they want you to be. Or you can take the hard route. You can heed the call Because if you don't, there will be consequences in your own life. The call to adventure is there and it wants you to listen. And it's going to be hard because you're going to have to question fundamental realities that have built your whole life. And that's okay because that's the alchemical path. Yes, the alchemical path was then to help create and discover chemistry. Yet, it also, in its main function, I think, because I am more of an esotericist, I see life that way. It seems to me and many others that it was actually a symbolic understanding of the psyche, of how to change your inner leaden part of your being into gold, to transcend the material into the ideal, into the divine, not to defeat the divine, not to try to swallow and become more than, but to integrate with the divine. Bring it into my being and see how it is but one. Find harmony, and that is true justice, says Plato. When all is run in harmony, there true justice will be abound. It is okay to change archetypes. They're living forces. They have countless variations. There's legitimate shifts. You know, you can change things and it's fine. And it's out there. In Shakespeare, they change things when the plays are retold. You get men in women's outfits and men and women, women in men's. There's a lot of overlap there, and that's fine. There's cultural shifts. The Magnificent Seven and the Seven Samurai, right? The cowboys and the samurai. There are these stories that can be changed. You can reframe even stories like The Wizard of Oz, where the Wicked Witch is not so wicked. She's just misunderstood. And I think that's great, actually, because it's all about perspective in that instance. There are some things that are done and perspectives that are told, and they really help us understand these archetypes and how they're seen from different angles. But archetypes equal biological and spiritual constants. Myths mirror organs and the psyche, as Joseph Campbell would state. Jung states archetypes equal universal structures of consciousness. The fallen world that I speak of, this is myth, magic, and meaning in a fallen world. The fallen world is myths inverted. Archetypes commodified. Archetypes commodified. How can you commodify an archetype? It can be done, and it's being done right now. These things must be restored to their harmonious order so we can honor the archetypes, not for nostalgia, but for meaning. And when they're not honored, just like when you dishonor a god or a family member or a person, there are consequences. So, where are we at now? This is where we're at. Archetypes are initiatory maps of the psyche, of the human being in the world on their hero's journey. So let's truly ask ourselves, what stories do you know and what kind of archetypes are out there? Do you understand these certain myths that we are constantly being consumed by? Do you see the mirror that is being shown directly into your face? Can you witness both the beauty and the chaos as it's unfolding before you? There are maps that are being subjugated and maps being discovered. Do you understand where you're at on the map and who is trying to lead you along on their own journey? Because if you're not finding your own meaning and you're not finding your own myth, then somebody else is doing it for you. And that is why we're here. We are here at Magus in the Media so you can understand the mythological journey that you've been set upon. Because either way, you're going to go on it. And you might as well not do it alone. Only you can choose where you're going, but we can We can be there to help you along your journey. I'm on a journey, you're on a journey. We're all adepts on this path. Whether you've just starting it or you've been further along, no matter where you are, please find a home here with us. This is Magus in the Media. And I want to say thank you so much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. And join the Magus's path of restoring myth to meaning forever.